Do you feel like that's a ring chasing situation?
With those two, I feel like it's more of them trying to build something situation. Now, like Brooklyn has had their issues. Brooklyn struggled. They had all the issues with the draft picks. They had the issue with the owners. They changed. Like, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's there. And I think that maybe that's one of those things when we're talking about our fandom, right? And those storylines, right? Like, we're fans of storylines, right? It's not necessarily that we're fans of players. Players give us interesting storylines. And if we don't find a storyline interesting, then we don't tune into the player, right? And I think that that's the thing, is that, like, why is Zion interesting? It's because his storyline is interesting. We want to see where it's going. Why was KD interesting? It wasn't because he was a good player to me. It wasn't because, like, he could join a team and win a championship. That wasn't why KD was interesting. Like, I like the challenge of KD. I like the battle. I like that he was pushing forward with Russell Westbrook. I like that they had their own conflict and they were trying to deal with it as best as they could, even if they didn't figure it out or fix it. Like, I like to see how that story was going to end, because I felt like it was a good story that was good for the game. And I think that the mindset of having to chase a championship and having to get a championship took away from a story that could have turned out to be amazing. And I'm a viewer of these storylines that probably feel good, right? Or that take you somewhere. And that storyline of the Warriors just didn't take me anywhere. And I feel like that was the issue with it for me. So
yeah, well, I think that in general, players do what they got to do to be happy. And I think we see a lot of the time players are unhappy because of reading what the media says about them. And if they are players who are a little bit more strong-minded or pay less attention to the media, then they make their moves based on what makes them happy, as opposed to what makes, what everyone else wants them to do. So I think ring chasing kind of comes as a result of that. One interesting case about ring chasing that I was thinking about just now was Carmelo Anthony. I think he's actually probably more of a traditional story of a player who played for his own team. He was on Denver. Then he went to New York because he wanted to live in New York, basically. He always wanted to be the alpha on his team. So, no disrespect for that. He felt that he was the best player on the team, and he always wanted to be that. So he did what he had to do. And then when he got to a point where people thought he wasn't the alpha anymore, and he wasn't a number one player, he was, people didn't want them on their team. And he was on Oklahoma City. He was on Houston. He was bouncing around, and he finally called on Portland. And I think his case with Portland, he's just been trying to be on a team. And I think he's gotten on teams that had championship aspirations, such as Houston, because a team with a championship aspiration will take a flyer on a player because they feel that their chemistry is strong enough to withstand any sort of disruptions that might happen. And, so he was on Houston for that reason. And Portland picked him up because they also have championship aspirations. But Portland also might be more than just a Carmelo Anthony away. So it's an interesting case. What do you think about Carmelo's story as far as ring chasing? Do you think he's currently in that ring chasing part of his career, or what do you think he's doing?
I think that in a sense, Carmelo's doing what you were saying, right? Like he's trying to chase happiness. And it's kind of weird because I feel like that's the trap, right? The trap is to say that a championship equals happiness. And a lot of people are buying into that, and it's not necessarily bringing them happiness, right? And when you look at Carmelo's story, is that he's bounced around all over the place, right? He's kind of had to accept that he isn't the man anymore, right? And that he'll never be the man on another NBA basketball team for the rest of his life. You know what I mean? So I feel like at this point, he's in that later stage that we were talking about earlier, where it's a player where, Carmelo's been trying to chase his championship his whole life. I hope he gets one, right? And it's sad to say, because when you typically say that, like, I hope he gets one, it sounds more of a desperation type thing, like, I hope he gets that girl. He's been trying all day. You know what I mean? Like, I hope he gets one. To So I do think that the interesting thing about Carmelo would be if he was on that Portland team, right? And he's still in that, I hope he gets one type of situation, but he ends up being a critical player to their playoff run. I think that for an older player, I think that it would make them feel like it was their championship because they did play a significant role and help the team get there. And they did the most of the role that they were given as an older player. So I don't know. I do think that Carmelo's like his journey was definitely weird. Thinking about him switching teams, I feel like he wanted it to work in New York a lot. He just couldn't get the people there, right? They tried to bring in Amari Stoudemire, and that whole thing just fell apart. They traded away picks, like they brought in a lot of coaches, and it didn't work out. And eventually, he just wasted not his whole like youth or his whole like prime, trying to get a championship for a team that had so many limitations. I guess you could make that case for KD, right? He could waste his time being a Melo, and then trying to end up being a ring chaser at the end. But again, I feel that if Carmelo would have stayed in New York for his whole career and pushed and kept trying to get the team to the playoffs and wouldn't have never got traded, I still would have thought about him as like a really good player. But it's hard to at the time because New York media is hard, and we do expect a lot more out of the Knicks. So I think that would be my interpretation of that Carmelo situation.
Yeah. I guess another question then is kind of, if a team doesn't have championship aspirations, then do we blame a player for going and trying to get a championship himself? Because the New York Knicks do not know how to get a team to the championships. No. They haven't won a championship since, 74 or something like that? It's been a long time, and they haven't made moves that put them in that right direction. Like, they keep getting new coaches, but they don't have the owner that wants to win necessarily. They've been getting cheap coaches, I think. Like, they had Derek Fisher, and that was a disaster. And then they had, what's his name from that used to play for Utah?
Jeff
Hornacek, right? Didn't they have Jeff Hornacek as a coach?
Maybe. I might be forgetting, but yeah, probably so. Yeah, probably
I think so. And I didn't know how he became a coach, to be honest. There was that, but they've been trying, and they wanted to get Phil Jackson, but he didn't want to coach for him. It's just they haven't done the things necessary to show a player that they're trying to win a championship. And that's okay for a young player, because young players don't understand what it takes, right? Young players are like, I'm just playing, right? Young players don't hold an organization accountable. So when you get older, though, and when you see the writings on the wall that this organization actually doesn't care about winning, and by extension, as a player, this organization doesn't care about me. So, is there a problem with you going somewhere else and trying to win?
Honestly, I feel like I said, the game of basketball is so different for every single person that's involved, whether it's the coaches, the fans, the players, whoever it is. For a player, as a fan, I'd hope for the most competitive, most interesting storylines that has interesting games and interesting matchups in it. Like, that would be my thing. For the players, as like a person that would understand from a player point of view, like, find a situation that makes you happy, right? Like, if you don't like the management, find management that makes you happy. But at the same time, just because you choose different management doesn't mean it's going to be better management. And I feel like that's the trap that some players get into. Just because something is different doesn't mean it's going to be better. And with that mindset, you set yourself up to be very disappointed, right? You set yourself up to start questioning yourself, because now you're like, I thought it was everything else, but maybe now it's me, right? Say, for example, I'll still use the situation with Paul George, right? Paul George was like, well, there's got to be something better than this, right? Like, I can win a championship somewhere else. This isn't working, right? But he was really close. He was this close. He was like a shot close to like getting to that championship, right? And maybe winning it, right? So it's like you're not that far off from 30 teams in the NBA, and you're basically one of the top like 4, and you have a chance to win the championship. You're a game away. Well, you're a lot closer probably to winning that championship than going to another team. Then he went to OKC, thought that might be better for him. It's like, okay, well, didn't necessarily work out, blah, 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 whatever. Left there, went to another team. It's not working out there. You know what I mean? And now there's more excuses. And because you feed into the media initially, you still feed into the media later on. And now you're in this media circle. So I just feel like for the players, do what makes you happy, but just understand that things are going to change when you go to a new organization. It's not necessarily just going to be the same. Even if they want you, it doesn't mean that your relationship is going to be better. So I think that that's one thing to keep in mind for the players. Like, always seek your own happiness, but just be able to like deal with any type of situations that might come for that. And that's cool. Like, have your journey and enjoy it as much as you can, I guess. So.
Yeah. And I think humility is a big key when you're ring chasing. I think you have to know that if you're doing this and you're at the end of your career, or even if you're just not an alpha, if you're not the number one player on the team, then you got to play your part if you want to win a championship. Because if that is the thing that matters to you the most, then you got to do whatever it takes to win the championship, or else you've been wasting your time. You know, like the years before that, when you're just out having fun and playing and doing whatever, that's one thing. But if you know and you've identified the thing that will complete your career and make you feel whole is to win a championship, then you got to get on the floor. You got to dive for loose balls. You got to, you know, sometimes take fouls that other people don't want to take, or whatever it is you got to do. You got to make sure that you're fitting in with that team. Don't disrupt the chemistry. Do whatever it takes. So I think you're right in terms of just in general, it's for happiness sake. So whatever makes you happy. And if chasing that ring, if bouncing from team to team to team at the end of your career is the thing that makes you happy because you feel that you can win a championship to validate your entire career, then you got to go for it, or else you're going to be wondering what could have been. And I think that's worse than failing a few times while changing teams.
I think it's, again, I'll say this, like there is no set right way. There's no set right way to live life. There's no set path that's perfect for everybody, right? And happiness, what people don't think about is that happiness isn't necessarily a representation of the journey. It's more of a goal that comes at the end of the journey. And it doesn't tell you how the journey is going to be till you get there. And because of that, happiness could only be a moment in time that could be very short-lived and could be gone as quick as you get it. And that's one of the things to keep in mind with happiness, is that it's temporary. So make sure that whatever journey you're going on, you have respect for it, and you allow yourself to see the positive and the good moments along that journey as well, because happiness isn't guaranteed. And if you're able to get it, like, appreciate it for what it is. And hopefully your journey brings you more of it, I guess. And I think that's the biggest thing for those players. And I do want to say one last thing about the KD thing. What he did for me now, thinking about it, it's okay with the sense of, or what the Warriors did in the sense of ring chasing. It's just a different type, right? Like the Pacers, were they ring chasing? Yeah, they were ring chasing. You know what I mean? Like they wanted a ring, but they just did it by developing their bench compared to developing their starting lineups. Now it seems like it's going a different way, where teams are starting to develop their starting lineups even more than compared to developing their bench to get to championships, which has seemed to work a lot better for some people, right? Develop your starting lineup. Don't develop your bench, you know what I mean, as much, right? So again, the game is changing, and hey, if the Warriors want to try that out and it works for them, then perfect, right? If KD would have went there, ended up being the man, and that was his journey, they kicked everybody off the team, or they didn't, and he just became the superstar or whatever, then maybe people would have felt different, or maybe I would have felt different. But it's just like, it is what it is. But it's okay. It's okay for them to do that. I feel like a hypocrite if I said that KD can't do what he could do, but because the game doesn't feel right, but flopping's okay, and flopping feels right. You know, I mean, it doesn't feel right either. So sorry about that. But yeah, that was my main thing with the KD part. So
yeah, I'm glad that you're okay with flopping. Yeah, I'm glad that is
I'm
now
not okay with
reconciled in
like
your
it's not
head.
like a top thing that I look for, but I'm just like, all right, cool, it's a part of the game. Yeah, I accept it.
Yeah. No, I think if I had to take one of those out of the game, I think I would probably take flopping out of the game before ring chasing, just because flopping is just systemic throughout the league, and it's a problem. It is a plague throughout the league, in my opinion. But it's a different story too. But yeah, I think that's a good way to finish it. In that, it's a part of the game.
Yeah,
People
sure.
do it, and we have to just understand that every era brings changes. And this era is the era of people that want to win championships early. That way, they don't have to think about it, and that way, they don't have to be that veteran player who didn't win a championship. It'll just be forgotten about when they're older. They have to remind people, man, I won a championship in '82. Like they got to go back. You don't remember that? Because people won't, but at least they'll have it.
Sorry, I know we're almost ending, but I think that's a really funny thing is because NBA players are changing teams so often. When they see each other later, they're not even going to remember that their friends won rings because they're like, "You won when? Yeah. What team was that? The Hawks with Trae Young, I think it was. Yeah, Trae was on the team. It's like, what? I forgot you was on that team. But it's kind of it's another interesting thing. But again, times change, so.
It'll be like Pat McCall, man. Pat McCall's got that three-peat. He's the only person that three-peat with two different teams in over the span of two different teams. And people aren't going to remember Pat McCall winning a championship.
Who was the next one that people were talking about that's on the Lakers? Was it Danny Green? No, Danny Green? No, Rondo. No. What? There's some other player that's on the Lakers that was with the Warriors, I think, for their past two championships.
Is it
maybe,
Quinn Cook?
Maybe it's Quinn Cook. Yeah, Quinn Cook's about to get that three-peat. Duke, stand up. Yep. But
yeah.
To go out to close out for me, like I just want to thank first of all, I want to thank KD for dealing with all the criticism that comes his way. Like he doesn't have to deal with any of this, you know what I mean? And I know that sometimes it hurts to hear certain things, you know what I mean? But I hope he understands that it's just from a fan's perspective and that, hey, do what you do, man. Everybody's always going to criticize everything that you do at any moment. So, hey, live your life for yourself and enjoy it. So first of all, I want to thank him. Outside of that, like I said, the biggest thing is just thinking about personal life and everything as well. I always try to think about things in totality. Sports aren't just sports to me. They have stories as well. And that's why we talk about Beyond Sports with Paul and Jeremy. So again, happiness can be short-lived. Enjoy the journey. Hope you guys reach your happiness as well. But don't neglect the journey because it's probably even more important than the actual feeling of being happy as well. So make sure that you enjoy it.
Well, they say life is not about the destination, but it's about the journey. So be happy while you're on your journey. Do things that make you content, that make you feel a sense of peace as you're doing it, and find your peace. Happiness, you don't want it to be confused with saying elation all the time or just being overjoyed all the time, but a sense of calm about what things are going on in your inner peace. If you can find that, then you made the right decision. The way that I personally approach things, I make a lot of rash decisions, I feel like, but I feel like if it's wrong, I'll just make a different decision. But whatever that one that made me feel at peace, I'm okay with it because there's a lot of stuff going on. But if you feel at peace with your decisions, then you can always make a different one later to try to rectify that. But you can't go from a situation that has you stressed out to another one that has you stressed out with no end in sight.
Yeah, that's called sadness right there. Eternal sadness.
So. Yeah. I think we need to talk about the fact that the Brooklyn Nets, we were talking about that. They don't necessarily have a coach, apparently, according to Kyrie. On any given night, Kyrie could be the coach, KD could be the coach, Steve Nash could even be the coach on any given night.
You know what? It's the new NBA, right? Like I told you, things are changing, man. You just got to accept it and enjoy the journey.
It's a collaborative effort.
Enjoy the Kyrie coaching, KD coaching journey.
Yeah, I hope that it's not a collaborative effort. I hope that they're not collaborating on coaching. I hope that one person, even if it's an assistant, steps up and is like, I'm the coach. Who's their lead assistant? Who is it?
Somebody.
But I remember they made a deal about it, right? A big deal about who
because
the lead assistant was going to be.
I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember.
We'll have to look it up.
I don't know what these
We'll have to look it up later. But either way, I hope somebody, and up to and including that lead assistant, somebody is the coach on any given night. And I hope it's not, Spencer Dinwiddie or something like that.
But maybe it's Karis LeVert. He's like, hey, listen, we going to dribble 20 seconds, then we going to drive, and we going to take the shot. Whoever has the ball is going to do that. I'm playing point. And that was it.
Yeah, so like any given night you have a guy that shows up that's supposed to be playing. He'll show up in a suit.
Yeah,
he's coach that night. Sometimes it'll be a couple guys, and then they got to figure out.
Yeah, it's like everybody shows up in warm-ups and then just rips them off, and there's one guy that has like a suit underneath. It's like, shoot,
he's the coach.
Got to put in the game.
Shoot tonight. Oh man, we're gonna have a good game tonight. Yeah. Jacques Vaughn. Yeah, Jacques Vaughn's going to be the lead assistant. So maybe he'll get a shot at coaching on one night over Kyrie. Maybe. Who knows?
We'll see. So. But I really do enjoy doing this podcast with you. I think about a lot of different types of things, and it helps me get thoughts out there. Like I said, all of our podcasts, a lot of times, like sometimes they are journeys. They're not necessarily just us talking and trying to teach and tell people. Like we're actually thinking and questioning our own thoughts or how we think about things for ourselves. And I think that that's what life is about. It's just understanding things for yourself, which always change. So thanks for doing this podcast. I'll let you jump in and talk about the Kyrie thing.
I think that was it. Just, the Nets will be primetime television because you'll never know who you'll see with the clipboard on the sideline. So you just tune in every night. Steve Nash might suit up. There's no telling.
You gotta be checking out the Nets.
I mean, I think you got to. Because look, if Steve Nash is not coaching that night, he's going to have to suit up. Bad back and all. He'll be in the corner shooting threes.
Enjoy their entertaining storyline. See, I feel like they are going to have an entertaining storyline. Like they have a lot of pieces that are there that are, we don't know how they're going to fit together. Yeah. But we'll see. So
yeah, but I think that's also a championship chasing situation, a ring chasing situation, because like I said, like the way that LeBron did it, LeBron will never be on a mediocre team ever again, right? If he is halfway through the season, the team is getting dismantled and then rebuilt in some way. In the same way as KD chose his team, he chose another teammate, right? Superstars are now leaving in free agency 2 at a time. They're not going 1 at a time unless they're being traded against their will, like Kawhi Leonard. So everything now, I think, from every superstar in their prime that hasn't won a championship is a ring chasing situation. You won't see Steph or Clay or Draymond chase rings anymore. They're done with that.
They don't need to. They'll probably be wherever.
They're done. Oh. But if they want to go to their hometown teams or something like that, then they'll disperse and do that or whatever. But they're not going to chase rings. But any other superstar who hasn't won and won amply, I guess, they're going to be chasing rings from now on with their free agency decisions. So you're going to see all the best teams are going to be the big markets. Maybe somebody goes to Houston and tries to win a championship, but that's, provided that they're still good after this whole upheaval, just no telling. Yeah. But there's only going to be so many good teams now. And we talked about Milwaukee several times. They're going to have a short shelf life here, depending on what Giannis does. Because, again, he can choose lifestyle reasons for a city, but he's also going to find somebody else to play with him. And that's what the media does, too. Media is like, who's going to play with you? Who's going to play with you? Are you going by yourself? They're putting pressure on these guys also to assemble like Voltron or something. It's always like that, right?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I think that the Nets might actually be kind of interesting to see how their team identity comes out. Like, I feel like they have 2 of the guys that have been most criticized by not being able to like be the leads of a team and take it somewhere. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's going to be interesting because like I feel like they both have like this tenacity about them where they just want to like they're like quiet. They got some dogs in a sense. Like KD can be a dog. He's just like a quiet dog. You know what I mean? Like Kyrie can be a dog. He's just that wow little dog that keeps talking all the time, that keeps yapping, but he actually can like hold his own sometimes. You know what I mean? So it's like Karis LeVert, he's a dog too. You know what I mean? So like maybe they got some more dogs on their team. Like,
I'm just waiting.
It'll be interesting to see how it turns out. So
I just hope in 6 months people will stop saying dog. I'm just waiting for like goodness. I'm just ready for that to stop. just done with that thing. People with dog, like I told you, we're doing DNA tests now. We're trying to figure out what percentage of dog people got in them and what dog and all, and dog and all that. So hopefully that ends and we can find another way. Maybe like a person being, I don't know, aggressive, being, I don't know, championship driven, something. We'll find some other adjective that ain't just an animal in them, you know.
He's just an animal.
Because then you can start being like, well, he's actually better. He's got wolf in him now. He's even more vicious than a dog. He's got their ancestors.
He got that dire wolf. He got that thing on that dire wolf.
That boy Stark.
Go right there, boy. He can save the world, bro. He got that dire wolf, bro.
They got even bigger. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think that'll be fun. That'll be good. I think KD's proven that he can lead a team deep into the playoffs because he was always the leader on teams that made deep in the playoffs.
To a championship, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's he can get to the finals. He got to the finals. You know what I mean?
To a championship, meaning winning the ring.
I get it. What I'm saying is you got to get to the championship to the finals before you can win. And KD's proven that he can take a team there and at least to the conference finals. Kyrie can't prove that he can lead a team to a winning record as the best player.
I know, right?
So
true.
I think those are totally different situations, you know, so we'll see how that works out.
I feel like that whole Boston thing with Kyrie was just, it was like a bad matchup pairing. Like they just thought that, again, this is that thing that I was saying with Miami, basically. It's just a bad pairing in Boston. Like I never felt like that was going to be able to fit because they were too constructed. And maybe that's the thing to say with KD. Like I always felt like KD would fit because he was a shooter. I never felt like Kyrie was going to fit with what Boston had to do, and they were going to have to make so many more changes because he's a ball-dominant player, and that didn't fit anybody's system in Boston. But I do feel like with the Nets, there is a possibility that KD can still be ball-dominant, still get Karis LeVert into game plan, as well as like making sure that KD like can still control his own stuff as well. So. Maybe they'll be an interesting scene to see how they develop. I'm excited to see that part, so I'll check that part out for sure.
Yeah, I actually don't know if KD will be able to be ball dominant if he's not fully healed off his injury. He's not going to be able to take people off the dribble. He might have to be a pull up shot, like a post up.
Yeah, I don't think KD's going to be as ball dominant, but I feel like he's still going to need to have his time where he can get into his game, right? Like he needs to be able to like dribble on some guys and like drive every now and then just to make sure that he's feeling involved or whatever.
Yeah, but I feel like he's going to have to do more spot up stuff. Maybe he posts. Maybe he can even, you know, pass out of the post and be kind of more like a traditional big man used to do. Maybe he'll do that type of stuff and he'll be versatile, I'm sure. But I don't know if we'll see the guy that can cross people up and dunk on them like he used to do.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see, man. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited for the next NBA season. When's this one over with, anyways?
In 3-4 days.
3-4 days
by next week. So won't be long.
All right. Well, outside of that, anything else? I always ask that. I didn't want to talk about the coaching thing. I didn't know how much time you had, though. I thought you had to head out. So.
No, I ain't got nothing.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like going off of that and going off of like what you were talking about with the whole coaches leaving and like the teams kind of controlling the destiny, right? And like you're talking about like teams chasing championships, right? It's not necessarily just players, right? And teams chase championships a lot of different ways, right? They chase it by trying to get players, right? They chase it after trying to get a better storyline, trying to bring in coach, trying to develop guys, right? Like all these moves are set so that they can eventually win those championships, right? Like that's the end goal. And I feel like we talked about the player part, maybe not from the ownership or team point of view, but we haven't necessarily talked about the coaching part of it, and how teams try to get different types of coaches to help them out. And again, whether it started from all the crazy decisions that the Pacers do, right? But the Pacers had Frank Vogel as a coach. He's not there anymore. He's about to maybe win one with the Lakers. They have Nate McMillan, and they fired him after giving him an extension because he got swept in the playoffs by a team that maybe the Pacers didn't think was going to go all the way to the championship and possibly have a chance if they were healthy to win the whole thing. You know what I mean? So it's like, do teams and general managers and ownerships, do they think too much about players about coaches and how important it is to get the right coach for their team and their system?
I don't think it can be overemphasized how much you need the right coach. I think a lot of players think that a coach is just for scheming. And I know a lot of times they were like, well, when the Clippers weren't playing well, Doc got them open shots and they weren't making shots. Okay, that's fine. But a coach does a lot more than just X's and O's. A coach has to be the on the floor culture setter, essentially. He's got to hold people accountable. He's got to set the tone for what the team is going to be. And the best coaches have been the best at dealing with players and especially star personalities. So if you don't have a coach who can turn those stars into willing teammates and contributors and shrink their ego and help them see that they're a part of something bigger than them, then it's going to be hard to win unless the coach is, does other things that helps them win. But my whole point being, if the coach does not fit the team and the personnel the right way, then yes, getting a new coach, I think, is really important. But it's always a gamble. It's always a crapshoot as to what the coach is. So you just have to be really good at reading people, at evaluating who can fit your team, or picking the guy that you want to lead your team and trying to target that coach and getting that coach. So I think it can't be overstated that a coach is very, very important and it needs to be the right person. You're not going to get the wrong coach and win at a high level. It just can't work because things don't work, things don't fit. I think you see it in the NFL more than any other thing. The NFL gets a lot of new coaches. There's a lot of turnover. And when you see new coaches come in, a lot of the time, if they don't win immediately, you can just see that they're not the right fit. The New York Jets didn't get the right guy. For some reason, they really wanted Adam Gase, and he's not been successful. For whatever reason, it just doesn't fit. Whereas if you look at the Green Bay Packers, they parted ways, and it wasn't the best way to part ways with Mike McCarthy, but they brought Matt LaFleur in. He won 13 games last year. They're, 3-0 this year so far? Whatever he did to put that team together, it fit, it worked, and they have been good. And it doesn't matter if you win the championship, in my opinion, necessarily. What matters is that you can build a team that can compete. If you get in the playoffs, then you can win, conceivably, in theory, right? So you have to get the playoffs first. So you can't be 3-13 in the NFL and expect the team to kind of want to keep you around. So I think, a team sees that the fit isn't right and they've been moving. And we said it, and I said this in private, the bubble is taking jobs. The bubble is claiming lives out here. I don't know what it is, but every coach that's been fired, it feels like, was in the bubble. Weird.
Yeah, it's like if you didn't make the playoffs, like you probably had a better chance of keeping your job than if you did. It was wild.
It makes no sense. So if you were a bad team this year, thank goodness, because you get to keep your job.
Yeah. So for me, one of the things that I thought is that it's partially kind of like the way that you're thinking about the coaching part, but it's partially a little bit different. So I realized that the thing about coaching is that it's so situational. And what I mean by that is that a coach can be very successful with a certain group of players or with a certain owner or a certain role in a certain city, and be really bad with another team, or be average or whatever with another team, right? And that's one of the things that I think needs to be taken into consideration, is that there has to be a certain amount where you just say, I don't know. I don't know who's going to be the best candidate out of these three. Which one do I feel most comfortable with? Shoot, pick a name out of a hat and go with it. Because there's so many variables that are not going to be controlled. You don't know how free agents think about this coach, right? You don't know what free agents you're going to bring about. You don't know how your players are developing. You don't know how your players are going to relate to your coach when stressful situations come along, right? Especially with these coaches that haven't had experience before. You don't know how they're going to talk to their players in a leadership role of an organization where their job is on the line, right? John Morant ain't losing his job, right? He can act however he's not losing his job, right? He doesn't have to worry about that, right? When Steve Nash was with the Phoenix Suns, he's not losing his job as the point guard if he makes a turnover, right? Or if he makes 10 turnovers, he's still going to be the starting point guard the next day, right? But if he takes 10 straight losses, things might change, you know? But I do feel that one of the things with coaching and thinking about that is that you need to have an understanding of the franchise. There needs to be some type of communication. We understand right now that the franchise is not necessarily where we want to go. We have these dreams of things that we would like to achieve. We have these things that we should achieve, and maybe some things that we better not achieve. You know what I mean? So there's different milestones that coaches need to reach, because there should be some type of flexibility, because everything's not necessarily going to always go smooth, right? Bill Belichick wasn't always considered a good coach. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't his thing. Like, Bill Parcells is coached for many different teams. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just because of your first coaching experience. There is no perfect coach that I think. And for the Pacers, now they fired Nate McMillan. They've interviewed over 20 coaching candidates. If you don't know who you want to possibly lead your team or to lead your team, like, interviewing more people ain't going to help. Obviously, you have an issue with making choices. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there should be some consideration with the coaching. You do need to have somebody that has a plan that you feel comfortable with your organization, because your job is on the line. That should be the main thing that you feel comfortable with, from my point of view. But yeah, it still baffles me that the Pacers have interviewed over 20 candidates and they still don't know. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's you, Colts. Maybe it's you, Pacers. Like, if you got to interview that many people, maybe it's you, Pacers.
Yeah, there's going to be somebody that coaches at a G League team or something, or Stackhouse, who's been trying to get in the NBA. There's going to be somebody who wants to get a foot in the door, you know.
They said that I think they're thinking it's going to be David Jerger.
Dave Yerger, he's coach for Memphis.
Yeah.
He's coach Grizzlies. Yeager.
Grizzlies. Memphis and Sacramento.
Yeah.
That's who they're
Wait,
who I've seen most recently.
He's not coaching. Is he coaching Sacramento now?
No, he got fired.
Oh, who's coaching Sacramento right now?
Vlade Divac.
No, no, I knew that. That's not true. I thought he was still coaching Sacramento.
Yeah, I think he got let go at that same time where they had that regime change with Vlade kick.
Okay. Wait, they made the bubble though, right?
I think yeah, they made the bubble, I believe.
Yeah,
so.
see, it's a problem.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's just, again, like, the reason why I thought that he was actually interesting, just looking up his pathway. Before he got to the NBA, he won a bunch of championships at other leagues, NBA Developmental League, some other smaller leagues, but he won probably like 6 championships out of 8 years in those like lower leagues. Then he came on as an assistant, worked as an assistant with Memphis, and then came around and stayed with Memphis. Had that team. They went to the playoffs, were second, I think, in their the division. The next year, they were third in the division, tied, same record as second place team. And then the last year, they basically didn't do well. He got the boot there. But again, Mike Conley was hurt. Marc Gasol was hurt. Zach Randolph were hurt also. And they were just like, you know what? This isn't going to work out. We made the playoffs 2 times, went to like, I think maybe second round or conference finals or something like that. And then it's like, one bad year, you're too new. Got to get you out of here. Then he went to the Kings, and he's actually improved them in the time that he's been there to the best record that they had since like 2004. But again, you have this team that's not that good, and you're expecting miraculous things out of a coach. Like, he's improved your record at this point, and you're seeing players get better. Some younger players, maybe not all of them, but you let them go. You know, so it's like you have to have a certain amount of patience, and maybe it's just the Pacers' time. If they get him as a coach, maybe he ends up really hitting his stride and trying to stay around there for a while. So
yeah, I was off on him. They have Luke Walton now, and he, I think, was there before Luke Walton. And I think
he was there for Luke.
I think it was because they could get Luke Walton because of his pedigree with Golden State. You know, so when a coach has a big name and he's hot at that moment, a lot of people will move mountains to get him, and it might not be a great idea, you know. But everybody wants to do that, the next big thing. So you were saying that some of the candidates for the Pacers, they wanted high tempo, offensive oriented coaches, right?
Yeah, so that's what it sounded like. They wanted guys that could develop young guys. and were a more modernized system is what they wanted. So typically probably a lot more 3-point shooting, a lot more range, a lot more up pace type game to them. So I feel like that's the only thing. Like, I thought that he didn't do a really good job at developing younger players when I was just thinking about it. And some of them didn't develop. But you also had guys like De'Aaron Fox that grew his game massively under David. And then once he left, his game slumped off. You had Buddy Hield that got a little bit better as well. And then you kind of see how his like little system's going. So again, it's interesting. I feel like whatever coach they get, develop young players should be one of those things, right? There's a lot of coaches that can do it. Some are better than others, but again, it's hard to know how a coach is going to develop if you don't know what type of players are going to be under that the team is going to have, you know? So I think my biggest takeaway for championship chasing, like I said, is that no matter if it's the players, no matter if it's the coach, no matter if it's the organization, right? You have to realize that it is going to feel nice to win, to like go in the championships, to win in the playoffs. But if you're having success right now and you're making a change, or even if you're not necessarily sure that that's going to lead to success. So just be patient sometimes. And maybe you'll get a little bit further.
Yeah. And for me, I feel a little differently about it. I feel like an organization needs to be patient because an organization has the power to bring in players, to get rid of players, to do what it needs to do personnel wise. A player himself doesn't have the opportunity to go to every organization. Like, so a player has to make the moves that are in their self-interest that is best for them. You know, like whatever the best move is, if they win a championship and they need to go to the Warriors to do it, or they need to go to Toronto to do it, or they need to go to Miami, whatever that is, do it. Jimmy Butler, for example. Jimmy Butler, a person who we've never thought about as chasing championships, right? And it doesn't seem like he is, only because it doesn't seem like he's an alpha type number one player on a championship team kind of player. We just don't know that yet. Not that he is or isn't. But what it shows that he needed the right fit for himself, and he chose the right fit in Miami. And that can lead them to a championship, and they're on the precipice, essentially. Like it's 1 game to nothing right now, so anybody can win the championship, essentially. But he chose the right culture and did the thing that made him feel most at peace after having been played on 3 teams in 3 years, basically, which is not normal for a player in the middle of their career. That's usually a thing that happens toward the end of the career, like Carmelo, like we talked about. So he's finally found a place where he can chase his championship now, but in the same location. And if he had it his way, I'm sure he'd stay on the Heat for the rest of his career. So that's a player we overlooked that we didn't think about, but I think is a good example of person that goes under the radar. If they win a championship, people are going to say he earned that championship, right? They're not going to say he left Philly and he left the Bulls or left not Milwaukee, Minnesota. He's had quite a little couple of years, and no one will say anything about it as long as they can win.
Yeah, I feel like it's weird because when you were talking about Jimmy Butler, it made me think about like how I view his situation and the championship chasing. Like, he championship chased, but since he wasn't like the top player, he had to do it on like not top teams, I guess, in a sense, which was kind of interesting, while still being a lead role, right? I feel like that's the thing, is that he wanted to find a team that had the players that he felt he could push to win a championship, right? Like, he wanted to be the one that was pushing, that was leading that team to win a championship. And you don't really see too many players that are just like in that mindset, right? Like CP3 didn't necessarily just go to Houston, or go to OKC, you know what I mean? Like, that was a trade, like there's not a lot of like star players that you see that, or players that you see that try to do that outside of, I guess recently you see LeBron do that, right? But so I feel like his situation, it felt like he was kind of like trying to like build something. He wasn't happy in Minnesota. They didn't have the athletic intensity that he needed, and it doesn't have to be a dog. He just they just didn't have that piece Wolf. There. Or Dire Wolf, right? Like they didn't have that. They didn't have that fight. And he was like, I need a team that's going to fight, because he realized that for him to win a championship, like, it's going to be a fight. Like, he's going to need people to go in there and fight with him. This isn't going to be a finesse thing. Like, this is going to be a battle. Like a MJ, like all right, Kerr, it's gonna be a battle. I'm gonna need you to fight. You know what I mean? Like
punch him in the face.
Fight. Yeah, like punch you in the face. You know what I mean? So it's like I feel like that's what Jimmy wanted. He wanted that team, and he's gotten a little bit of that with the young guys in Miami, as well as some of those like vets that have been there before that know how to do it. So
like
shout out to Miami,
who's still on the roster somehow.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
Udonis Haslam.
I can't even believe he's still playing. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy him playing Iguodala at that level. But again, that's because they have that intensity, that mindset, that intense mindset. You know what I mean? Not dog-like. And it carries them. You know what I mean? So the last thing that I was thinking about with that thing that you were saying was that I think there's a difference between what decision's best and what decision makes you happy. Because honestly, like, we don't know if there's a best decision, and if there even is a best decision, what that best decision may be, right? It's just a decision, and every decision is going to have its own set of consequences. Right. So I think that that's the biggest thing. Like, be happy with your decision. There is no best decision. Like, staying around doesn't mean you're always going to be happy. Leaving doesn't mean you're always going to be happy, right? And that's one of the things that we didn't necessarily talk about, you know what I mean? But, like, I think that's the thing. You can only control so much. So just make decisions that you're comfortable with at the time, and just know that you have to be responsible for those decisions. And I think it'll be cool at the end of the day. So
yeah. And not everyone has the mentality that they want to win a championship.
Yeah.
Which is, something that I think we never even brought up until now. Not everybody wants to win a championship. Some people just want to play for the money. Some people want to play with their friends. Some people just want to whatever. They have other things that matter to them. So it's all about priorities. So we're talking as if a championship is a priority for everyone. I don't think it is necessarily.
Yeah.
I do like the Jimmy Butler thing, because I thought about it differently. Because I always thought that he was a jerk and everything. And then, like I told you, when he talked about the Philadelphia situation, I felt kind of bad for him. But I think I can relate to Jimmy Butler a lot, because I would be the same way. I want to win the way I want to win. I don't want to win just by being on somebody's team. I want to feel like I contributed, but in the way that I wanted to contribute. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to just be some guy on the team that you remember in the team photo, or that you see in the commemoration video. You just see me jumping around, and like you said, they're like, "You was on that team?" Like, come on, man. 3 points a game. I was off the bench, right? I want to be something that I want to be, like a contributor. I want to push people, whatever it is that I feel like I can bring to a team, I'd want to do it. And I think he's doing it the way he wants to do it, which I think brings him more joy. And whether or not they win a championship, that's going to be the team that he wants to be on. So, that's just another part of it.
I think this is kind of my thing. Like, his meaningful run with Miami, even if he doesn't win a championship, would probably mean more to him later in his life than it would if he would have joined the Lakers and won a championship. You know what I mean? And I feel like, for me, I think that's where the part of this conversation kind of was headed at a point, is that in the NBA, for just to kind of like you just said, like you're saying that we're assuming that a lot of players want to win a championship. I think that I'm more thinking about those top players that are really championship chasing, right? Like those types of guys more than anything. It's just, I think with those guys, right, that pressure to win the championship is super high. And I feel like that's put on them by the media and stuff. And I say, forget the championship. I forget a lot of people that are on championship teams, but I'll always remember some of the players that I watched, and I'll always associate them with grandmama. I'm always gonna. How good was he? I mean, he was solid. How good was Larry Johnson? Did he ever win a championship? I don't think so. I mean, people can say I don't think so, or be
or Alonzo Mourning, since they played on the same team. You forgot, but he won a championship, right?
Exactly, right? And it's just kind of who knows? But it's just we do remember these players for who they are. And a lot of times who they are comes with what teams they are. If Patrick Ewing would have switched a bunch of teams back then, yes, Patrick Ewing, he played for a bunch of teams. But now I think of Patrick Ewing, and I think of the Knicks and the journey that they did the whole time, and how he wasn't able to get there, and that storyline. To me, it's more interesting to me. Patrick Ewing, he just kept going all around and could never win a title. You know what I mean? Compared to he was with the Knicks, they fought, they battled, they had some really good
and they played in two finals. They lost to two teams that at least won multiple championships. You know what I mean?
And it's It's like he could never take that away. Like me and my brothers battled as hard as we could, and we were so close. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and he was, he led a team from being the number one pick to being an NBA Finals team, right?
Yeah.
Like that's all you can ask for, I think, in a
Exactly.
career, even if you don't win. At least in a career before 2011, before the lockout and all that stuff. You know what I mean? I feel like the new CBAs are all different and everything's happening crazy. But before probably the 2010s decade, if you spent 15 years on a team, got them to an NBA Finals appearance and lost, you could be happy with that. And I think Charles Barkley was happy with that. The only thing that people give Charles Barkley stuff about is that he played on the same dream team as some of the best players ever, and he just was one of the few that didn't win. But again, he shouldn't be the poster child for not having won a championship. You know what I'm saying? There's plenty of people who didn't win championships that were the best players on teams. In the same way that there are plenty of people that won championships after having switched teams that we don't even think about. You know what I mean? Don't even remember. And nobody thinks about Robert Horry at all. Even, you know what I'm saying? Like, not to say anything bad about Robert Horry, right?
Yeah.
But, you don't think, when you think about people who won a lot of championships, people have to bring up Robert Horry, but you never think about him as having won more because he wasn't ever the best player on the team.
People in the NBA do when they invite him to his party and all they hear is, when he like puts his hand on the table, all those rings.
When he got too many rings for fingers.
Yeah. But I want to ask about one player real quick, because I think that it's interesting to relate the differences and kind of like bring these two together. So one player that was having this issue with the championship thing and finally got it with the team that he started with is Dirk Nowitzki, right? So I asked you that question. Before Dirk got his championship and after it, did it change your mindset of him as a player, or did it change your mindset of him just as a fan of the game, I guess, maybe?
I don't think it changed my mindset and my opinion of Dirk, but I was really happy that Dirk got a championship because Dirk did step up. Like, that whole run, he just played crazy. He was doing everything his team needed at the end. You know what I'm saying? He was backing people down, hitting game-winning shots, just rebounding all over the place. He stepped it up in that playoff run in a way that you hope to see a person do when they know that they can win a championship. And his swag just turned up like crazy after he won that championship too. So I think that it was all good for him because he cemented himself. Hall of Fame, period. No questions. One of the top, 50 best players ever. Hard to say, but he cemented his legacy by winning a championship with that team, by going through the ups and downs, having multiple iterations of teammates. People came in and went, but he was still solid through all that. And he only learned to play better and adapt his game. He did, you know what I'm saying? He started going down there and rebounding and everything during the championship run. I think he actually influenced that Miami Heat team because of his team, rising above, winning. And I think they kind of let the Miami Heat know, hey, you just can't walk in and win. You got to work hard. And that Dallas team was a lot of fun to watch that year. So I enjoyed the run. I enjoyed just watching the games and everything. It didn't make me look at him any different. But yeah, definitely that championship was legit. And it's, you always think about Dirk as having had that magical run, no matter what he did before that.
Or
even when they lost in 2006.
Telling you, man, I haven't said it this episode, so I'm going to say it now. I love when you're like making points because it always makes me think of stuff. I'm like, dang, that was deep. What you just told me in a sense was Dirk is responsible for LeBron James's killer mentality. And that's actually interesting. Like, I had never thought about that point before. Like, before then, like, LeBron James had made it to finals and just couldn't get over that edge. You know what I mean? But I feel like after that point, it's just like, I can't be nice. I can't be happy. I just have to be an aggressive individual with intense emotions, like, and I have to be a take charge type of personality, also not a dog.
Yeah. I was thinking of an abbreviation for that. I was like a doggone gamer, but then I still use the word, either way. Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like maybe that's one of the things, like, maybe LeBron just took it like that, right? Like, and I feel like that's part of the thing that's a challenge for me, right? Is that you have these guys coming together. What are going to be some of the roadblocks and what are they going to figure out? Well, that first year they figured out you can't just put guys together and think that it's going to work out. Like, you really have to make sure that you mesh because good teams with chemistry will take you out if they're on. So I feel like that's the thing with LeBron. Like, that's why I feel like he got a lot more serious with things at that point. And I feel like he, especially after that second championship that they won, it was just like, all right, cool. Gonna go back to Cleveland, gonna handle business. All right, cool. About to leave Cleveland, about to go to LA, handle business out there. All right, these guys ain't ready. I'm gonna still hype them up, but AD, you coming with me? All right, cool.
He's gonna
Next
hype
year,
them up,
we're gonna get it.
hype them up to build up their trade value. Oh man, he's untouchable.
We always knew
untouchable. We would never trade him.
We always knew that he was a businessman. We always knew LeBron was a business. It's like, yeah, my first big deal was trading away Lonzo and Ingram. God,
his first big deal, no. I mean, aside from the Miami Heat stuff, he got rid of Wiggins. Got rid of Wiggins and Anthony Bennett
for Kevin Love.
He was just like, hey, I ain't coming to the team with these two dudes on the team.
Wiggins and Bennett for Kevin Love.
Yeah.
Ring chasing Kevin Love. We ain't talking about that ring chaser.
Kevin, didn't he get traded?
I think.
I mean, he got requested. He was invited to the ring chasing party. You know what I'm saying? He was like, I need a three that's going to, fit what I need. And he used to have he used to have Bosh. So now after Chris Bosh, you want Kevin Love. So he was just invited to the party. He was an honored guest, I would say.
Yeah, this is before like the NBA was cracking down on players talking. They were like, "Oh shoot, players talking. They having their own opinion. They're collaborating plans without us. We had to stop that."
They ain't cracked down on nothing. They got the All-Star game. They vacation together. Everybody's best friends from growing up. Man,
yeah,
there's no
that's what I'm saying. They're trying to. They're still trying to because they realize like the players having more control can be a dangerous thing, I guess. So
for them, not for the players,
for them,
but
not for players, for them, for them, like especially like
the money,
financially, like it's like, all right, we're gonna make the rules and we're gonna have this league and we're gonna like tell the players what to do, and now the players like, nah, we gonna tell ourselves what to do, and we're just gonna laugh and have a good time. I want to play with my buddies, and you just sit back and enjoy, but be careful, don't step on my feet because I'm gonna leave your team and you're gonna be poor.
I'm signing on 1+1 is what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing every year. I'll give you one guaranteed year and we'll see about the second one.
That is actually so crazy. You know what I mean? When you think about it, just because like the players have so much power in that, like in management and ownerships has to always be on their feet. Like it has to be a stressful job being a NBA GM right now and not knowing if your best player is going to stick around. Like,
I would just be like, whatever, dude, if he wants to stay, that's cool. I'll give him the pitch. If you don't want to stay, then it wasn't meant to be. Because these guys, they do what they want, man. So you can't stop them, right? So
but it's hard, right? Because I mean, it's still your job, and if you don't get him to stay around, maybe you lose your job.
Yeah, so but you got to operate like a small market team. I think every team has to have the mentality that we have to build through the draft because you can't depend on free agents anymore because they'll do what they want. You got to make sure that you got somebody in there that you draft well. You know what I mean?
Every owner needs to have that mindset because the owners are the ones that are like the ones that are. I think that's the thing. Like if owners can understand that the game is changing and that if you want to stay alive, you better change too. If they can't understand that, the teams will just suffer and they'll still make money. That's the only thing. Like the NBA is going to still make money. So they're like, your team won't be good, but you're making money. Like he could live on a beach and be like, oh yeah, I don't know how my team's doing. I haven't talked to them in like 10 years. You know what I mean? Like,
But there's also the problem is now it's not even just free agency. It's now what people are calling pre-agency, right? That year before they're actually free agents, where somehow they're still getting traded to the team of their choice.
Wild, right?
Right? Because they say I'm not going to sign, so trade me. And a team doesn't have to. I think the Spurs did the right thing by trading Kawhi to not necessarily did the right thing. It was really spiteful, obviously, but I think that they did the thing that they wanted to do, and they didn't bow into pressure, which I think an organization has to do because it's a dance everybody's playing. So if you feel like you don't want to send that guy to his destination of choice, especially if they're going to be a conference rival, you got to do what you got to do, man, and get somebody good out of it. So they traded him for, DeMar DeRozan, and they thought maybe we could plug him in. So you do what you got to do. I mean, I would probably do that too. I'd probably do that spiteful thing too. You want to go to LA, I'm going to trade you somewhere cold and frigid. And if there was a team in Alaska, I'd trade you to Alaska. Whatever, and you'll get there. Like,
I always wanted to go to Toronto. I like cold mentality.
I'm a fun guy.
Really cold guy. Like climbing up towers, Space Needles and stuff. Might go to Seattle. Kawhi. But yeah, that dude. I don't know, man. I think it's. I do think that's a good point though. For teams with the changing league, like it's definitely going to interact more like small market teams, and I feel like that's how you're just going to have to be with players. Like, all right, cool, you're not trying to be on this team. All right, well, we'll see what we can do, and that's it, right? Like,
yeah, but that's why I was so mad. I'm gonna tell you like that. Like, I was upset about the Anthony Davis trade, and we kind of went over it. I was upset because Anthony Davis was like, I want to be in LA, and somehow people were trying to pressure New Orleans to trade him to LA. Like, they didn't have to do nothing, right? They didn't have to trade him. Let him go to LA as a free agent. That's fine. Let him go. But you don't got to trade him. And honestly, I'm not even saying you burn down your organization, because if you have everybody but Anthony Davis, you're still going to get a high draft pick the next year. You still get Zion Williamson. It's not like you needed everybody else in that trade. But for you to basically him say, I'm going to go here, and then you just take whatever trade that the Lakers give you just because, like, no, you can make your way to LA. You can make your way to LA by way of Milwaukee. I'm gonna trade you for somebody in Milwaukee. Then you can make your way through Minnesota.
I could, but I like I said, I still see in the same way on that trade. Is that I feel like those guys had a lot of value. It was just developmental value that wasn't gonna mature for a while. So for the New Orleans Pelicans, like I feel like that's still a good move because you don't necessarily even know which one of those young guys is going to develop, but now you have a chance at being a small market team that's able to bring back maybe 3 or 4 of your young stars on contracts if you can get them all signed, compared to trying to hope that you can keep AD around or that you're going to be able to get some free agents or something or another first-round pick, first overall that doesn't turn out to be anything. So I don't mind the trade. Like I said, I feel like they had a value. They got a lot of value from it, but it's hard. Like, you're never going to get enough value from Anthony Davis. And you can see that because having him on your team for LeBron just helped him possibly win a championship.
Yeah, but
we'll see how this
Anthony Davis had more value to the Lakers than he did to New Orleans because he was going to be the missing piece. Because in New Orleans, as the number 1 guy, you saw what you got with him. And the only way that you could get better.
Though, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but so the value was already in New Orleans' favor in a sense because they already had the more valuable asset on their end. Because there's no way that New Orleans that the Lakers would value any other player more than Anthony Davis. So they're getting their guy by giving you players that they don't value nearly as much. You know what I'm saying? Like, they knew that there's no amount of players that they could get that would equal Anthony Davis in their eyes. And New Orleans had to basically take whatever players that they didn't want that they also didn't value as well. But he was more valuable to the Lakers. And by knowing that, New Orleans should have either not traded him to the Lakers or gotten anybody else that they thought. I mean, maybe they thought those 2 guys were good. That's fine. But I just feel like
they did. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe they did. And I don't know. It just felt like they were pressured to take the deal because that's what basically happened to me. That's how it felt in the media, was there was pressure for them to take the deal. They were like, Magic Johnson offered New Orleans the entire starting lineup, and they said no. And why didn't they take that deal? I think that's the thing, is that you're talking about these front offices, right? Like, you're a front office person. Like, this is your job. You ain't worried about what the media is saying about who you should take. Like, I'm pretty sure that the Lakers gave them a lot of different offers and didn't work. And like, when you're talking about this, like Anthony Davis being more valuable to the Lakers than New Orleans, like, he was. And New Orleans understood that. But also New Orleans understood that Anthony Davis was losing value every single day, in a sense, for them purposely, because at a certain point, like, he was going to lose. Or they were going to lose him. And they had this thing that's like $1 million. You have $1 million to use right now, or it just goes to waste in a year. Well, what are you going to do? You're probably going to use that $1 million for stuff that you can use later, right? Like, you can use Lonzo Ball in a future trade. You can use Brandon Ingram in a future trade. Like you can use these guys in future trades as well. It's not necessarily just their value at the trade time. It's their value as they go along throughout their careers, right? And again, if you're going to lose Anthony Davis, well, at least get something back for it. Like, you're not going to be that prideful. It's not going to be like, oh, well, at least we didn't trade him. Like, at least we didn't trade him. Like, we made him leave. Ha, ha, ha. You're going to remember being at the bottom of the... somewhere else. You're going to... But you trade him someone else. That's the spiteful part about it. Like, you don't need to be spiteful.
you don't win championships by being spiteful. You win championships by making money moves, or however they say that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you have to make championship moves to win championships.
Yeah, but
you don't win
New
it by
Orleans
being
was
spiteful.
not setting themselves up to win a championship.
But they are. That's what I'm saying.
They're
You're bringing
not.
in. No, but I'm saying
New Orleans will not be anywhere near a championship in the next 4 or 5 years. I'm saying,
but that's the thing is that you just said that to build an organization and build this up, you have to have this long-term plan. You have to have this culture. You have to have these guys that develop. For these small market teams, they have to invest in these young guys where they can have them for the first part of their contract. And then on their second deal, they're able to match any other person that's out there. So say if one of these guys goes out and becomes a superstar, an all-star, now you have the chance to keep that guy around no matter what. He can't leave like AD did. So you have maybe 8 years of this player playing for your team right now. Like, and if you want, if that player gets good, then you can trade him away. But you have a lot more capital from trading AD to better your team for the future, to look towards the future, than look at the past and be like, oh, well, AD should have stayed here.
But
so, now he's miserable because he got traded. Like, he's not miserable.
Is he a free agent? He's coming up.
He's about to be a free agent. Yeah, he's about to be a free agent.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, they didn't do a sign and trade. They just traded him, whatever. So now he's giving up money even. And that's what we see. They've tried to make the CBA such that you could keep players by giving them ridiculous amounts of money. But most of the players don't want it, right? Like, most of the players
figured out it was stupid. They figured out that they could do these 1-year deals and make way more money. Like,
they could be in better situations, because most of the time these are number one picks, and number one pick goes to a bad team, and they don't want to be in those bad team situations a lot of the time.
Well, I mean more that these players, right? They tried to make the CBA. They tried to make it so that the team could get this long-term deal. The player could get this long-term deal where they were more financially secure. And what you're basically saying, which I agree with, is that players are like, we don't care about your financial security. We know somebody's going to pay us.
Yeah.
We see how the deals are. So we just going to sign 1-year deals. Like, you saw what happened with KD getting a max contract after an injury and not even playing a season. If you're a top player, why do you need to sign a max contract? You don't.
Or a super max. You don't need the super max.
Why do you need a super max, right? Like, just sign the max that you can for a year and just keep doing that repeatedly. Control your own destiny and have that freedom, right? Like, that's what we're all in search of anyways. It's just freedom, right? Like, that's all it is. Like, championship is freedom to, like, tell people, like, you can't judge me. I'm a champion. Like, I won it all. So now what? You know what I mean? Like, It's just that freedom. Like, that's all that they're searching for. And it's like, having money guaranteed isn't freedom. Being able to go wherever I want to, now that's freedom. Having you stress out about if I'm going to stay around or not, and making you try to give me more money, that's freedom. You know what I mean? Like, getting more responsibility within the organization, or like being a part of like trade talks or free agency, that's freedom. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want. It's a different type of equity. Now players are going and saying, well, we want a different type of equity than what we had before. And this is the way that we're going to get it. And we're going to put you on the hot seat instead of us. So I think it's cool, man. It's definitely different, but I think it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, so no, I don't mind that players take advantage of the system as it's currently constructed, because they're arguing on their own behalf by doing the CBA a certain way, because that's partly, it's between the owners and the players. So yeah, if that's how they want the CBA, that's fine. It's just, I think when I don't know, it's just hard to figure out what the actual player motivation is. And I think it's just based on an individual player basis, but it's hard to figure out because the players are changing teams in certain ways that don't make sense. And they're just like, they're not playing out their full contracts because they're trading teams, and they're pressuring owners, and the owners are actually bowing to the pressure. It's just a weird situation. And I'm not trying to be that person that says the players can't do what they want to do, because that's not the case. But it's just confusing to try to follow all the moves and try to figure out what's going on. And I think also to know what, like, we don't understand what's really going on. We don't understand the little backroom deals and stuff, or how everybody has the same agents and that's why these things are happening. Like, we don't get it. But there's a lot of stuff that is underneath the surface that I think helps drive the player movement that is really kind of behind the scenes that we don't get.
Yeah, and I think along those lines, I just believe that basketball more now than any other point in the NBA is more of an industry. Like it's more of a business than anything else. It's guys that are participating in a business, but also partially kind of like running it as well. And there's a lot of moves within this business and a lot of ways to make money. And again, I don't think basketball is the same game that we initially probably started watching. Like the game has changed so much. And there's still players that are passionate about it, but it's not just basketball anymore. It's so much more than that, because there's so much money that's invested in around it and surrounding it. Like I feel like that changes around the sport a lot. So I just think the game is different now, and it is what it is. Like I'm just gonna try to accept it for some parts, and I'm gonna criticize it at other parts that don't make sense to me. You know, and it's just, I think that's fine. So I guess we'll see. We'll see how the game is. I'm interested to see how the game's going to be in like 10 years, especially with the CBA and free agency and the rule ends and the max contracts. Is there actually going to be an actual cap, or are you just going to keep making people pay the luxury tax, or what types of changes are going to be made to kind of like,
I think
keep the competitive balance?
It's just going to be 3-point contest. They're not even going to act like there's a game. They're just going to have their best player do a 3-point contest against the other player. And
the Pacers versus the Heat for the 3-point contest. It's like,
it'll be Duncan Robinson versus Danny Green, or
just like shoot the threes. If somebody get the rebound, you just put your people around the sides to get the rebound.
I think that would be cool, actually, because instead of the racks, you have to have rebounders. So the team with the better rebounders and faster passers or something, that might actually give them an advantage. There's got to be something that changes it other than just racks. But you do
can
2
make
minutes
a game up, man.
With a rebounder.
You can make a game.
Yeah,
you can make a game and call it old school basketball. It's like you position people 4 parts, and there's one guy that gets to dribble and shoot, and then people get the rebound, and then they get to move. You have to stay at that same spot, and then you just set the name. That's the game. First person to 10 wins. That's a new league, the Big 10. That's what we'll call it. So
yeah. And Ice Cube is going to get a cut,
of course. Or we'll call it the Grand 10. But yeah, so. Well, probably about to get out of here in a second, because I'm supposed to meet some people to watch this Miami Heat Laker game or whatever. But any takeaways outside of this, man?
Well, we originally were talking about ring chasing, and like we said, it's all about player happiness. Do the things that makes you happy, and if getting a ring at a certain point in your life makes you happy, that's fine. But just know that the media's pressure is what's causing, I think, a lot of it. So that's kind of where we were with that. Player movement, all that other free agency, coaching and everything. I think it comes down to an organization needs to know what it wants to do, and it's got to start from the top. And if the organization doesn't know what its identity is, then it's going to have a problem. So it needs to have an identity, and it needs to make moves that correspond to that and furthering its identity. And hopefully that identity is winning in some form. Yeah,
definitely. Like I said, I think they said it pretty well. Outside of that, this is Beyond Sports with Paul and Jeremy. I'm Paul.
I'm Jeremy.
All right, and thanks for checking us out. Make sure that you check out some of our podcasts that we have up. We also have some stuff that's on YouTube now, right? And like I said, just check out Beyond Sports with Paul and Jeremy. And thank you for your time.
Oh, and definitely tweet at us, Beyond Sports PJ, at Beyond Sports PJ. Let us know how many championships KD actually has in your opinion, or LeBron, or Robert Horry, I don't know, Jordan, whoever. At Beyond Sports PJ, let us know your thoughts on players' championships based on ring chasing and all that. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Have a good evening, guys.
All right. Good night.